Walk like a man, even though you walk alone. My court approval, once the road is known. Let come who will, but if they all turn home, the road still awaits you. Go on alone. Go on alone. Go on alone. Long I've called you, my Lord. Long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come?
Thank you, Bara and choir. Swamiji, as you know, spent a great deal of his time writing music. He said that he would just have to ask Divine Mother. This was one of the ways he served, that I need a song, I need a melody to convey such and such a situation. Over the years, you would see and read that it was somebody's marriage was coming and he wanted to compose something for that. Somebody passed away. He wanted to convey his feelings for that moment. Of course, songs for blessing food, something at home, people coming, people leaving. There's a song they say in Ananda for everything. And it's really nice when we can, because this was our last meeting the monks had with him in Pune. And of course, you never know. It's their last meeting when you're seeing somebody and it's not told that way. It was the last for the time being, we thought. So people were asking questions, and Amit had asked him this very nice question. He said, Swamiji, you've often said, in order to know me, listen to my music. Of course, then Swami would go further, sing my music, play my music. I said, so what does that line mean? Listen to my music if you want to know me. And Swamiji said, you see, in order to know Master, you have to meditate. Master would say, get to know me on the inside. And he said, the same can be said for me too. I would say the same thing. To really know me or anybody, you need to go within. But to know my personality, he said, it's nice if you listen to my music. Which was, later I would think of that line, because normally you think of, he was a saint, that what does a personality really mean to him? After all, isn't that what we are tired of? We are trying to shed that. But you see, in a saint, that becomes a very sattvic thing to do. So much so, Master encouraged Swamiji. Remember that story where Swamiji was very new on the path? Of course, he was one of those disciples who came towards the end of Master's life. So they had read the autobiography of a yogi, which came out in 1946. It's very interesting that Master spent most of his time in the US without his autobiography being there. So I don't know how people got to know about him. I mean, I'm sure there were many articles. His magazine would go out. His lectures had gone on for a long time. But I mean, most of us came to know of Master through that book. Swami talking about Master, about that book, writing so many books. But imagine, that book was not there for many disciples, but Swami read that and he knew the stature. He recognized immediately that Master is certainly no ordinary, of course, soul, but no ordinary saint either. And he was this young monk at that time, and Master was giving somebody some instructions. And Swami said, And those were very mundane instructions. Sometimes, actually, I don't know if I'm mixing two stories, but at different times, Swami would say, Master would tell somebody how to make the proper concrete mix to fix a certain pothole. And then he would go in details, make sure there is so much stone, cement, and water, and then be sure there's another pothole over there. You read letters Master wrote to Swamiji. He said, do you have a pencil? Are you eating well? Since the work I've given you is very sedentary, make sure you get up every hour and stretch. Then twice a day, go out, run around the property, do some jogs. Again, he said, if you need more stationery, let me know. And he was writing in the corners of those mails. And you'd think that Swami was no child, he could get stationery. But on the other hand, there was this sweetness he was expressing. And Swamiji was very intellectual, so maybe Master was kind of working more on a personal relation, on a heart-opening exercise. Of course, we all know that wonderful story where, again, Swamiji was intellectual and Master brought him into the room and he said, oh, look, he told some disciple, turn off the lights. And then Master opened this bag and Swami's hearing the sound and he pulls out a gun, toy gun. And he starts playing it and the sparks start coming out. And Master turns to Swamiji and he says, what do you think of this, Walter? And Master was so enjoying, as if this was the biggest event of the day or his life and, the greatest sermon. See, imagine you get a moment with an avatar. You would think he would give you a sermon. And he's playing with this toy gun and he's asking you, what do you think? And Swami said, well, it's very nice, sir. Then Master pulled out another gun. He shot this, pressed the trigger, and a parachute came out with a toy man hanging over there and falls slowly. And everybody started clapping. And Master said, what do you think of this one? And Swami says, they're fine, sir. And Master said, oh, Walter, you are so serious all the time. He said, don't take it easy. So at that time, going back to that story, Swami was intellectualizing. Master was telling somebody what work to do, where he's going, how to go into the sermon and the proper attitudes. And Swamiji was thinking, he said, Master is omniscient and he's speaking to this person very personally in details, but he's everywhere. And then, of course, as the mind goes, the next thought was, since he's everywhere and he knows everything, he knows that I'm thinking these thoughts about him standing over here. You remember when Swami was first approaching Mount Washington, he said, since Master is so great, he knows everything, maybe his disciples are so great, maybe they all know I'm coming today. That was how Swamiji's mind used to operate. And Master finished his conversation. He walked towards young Kriyananda. He gave him an apple that he was holding. And he smiled very sweetly. And Swami said he meditated on that brief incident, those eyes, that smile. Why did Master give him an apple? He could have said again. Of course, the moment Swami thought, does he know my thoughts? Master came up to him and gave him an apple. And Swamiji would later say that, he said, I feel that Master was trying to tell me, approach my infinity, my infinite consciousness, not in spite of my humanity, as if there's a barrier over here in flesh and form and instructions. So approach my infinity, not in spite of my humanity, but through it. That how can you make your relationships so sattvic? Imagine the connection between Arjuna and Krishna. Any divine Leela, it is so divine on every level. And the human mind, when after this long struggle, Master used to tell a monk was once having doubts about the spiritual path, and he said, sir, the path is just getting too much for me. I don't think I have good karma. One of the fallacies of knowing about karma. The other day, we were urging Blazy to do some cooking, and she said, I was a very big baker in my past life. And I said, now what do you do when somebody says something like that? Just because we know about past lives, you can say anything and get away with it. So, but she is learning baking starting this Saturday, because Roberto is coming and Chef Roberto is coming. We bought a big oven so that we can learn bread making and all those things. But knowing about karma, what story was I telling before, Blaze? I have bad karma, that monk said. And Swami said, Master would not take that lightly. Master told him, remember, it takes very, very, very good karma. even to want to know God. So let's think of that. You finally, after very, very, very good karma, how many good acts must have gone to create those three veries? You reach the point you say, okay, I want to know God. And then that's not enough. Then when you are persistent in that desire, God sends, when the disciple is ready, God sends the guru. So Swami was finally drawn on the path at that time. And you think, okay, so it's natural for people to think, okay, now I'm done with personalities and all these humanity and all, because you have to be a humanitarian, I believe, in order to earn that good karma. Helping people is one way to earn very good karma very quickly. But you finally reach there, and here is a guru, he's trying to tell you, approach my infinity through my human consciousness also. Don't ignore that in the process. And Swami would say, somebody asked him, what was the most striking thing you liked about Yogananda ji? And Swami's reply was his appropriate response in every situation. He was not aloof. He was not dismissive. He was not waiting for the other world. He was not biding his time over here somehow. Oh Lord, how many more days? It was not like that. Like somebody, in this storybook I was reading, the person was brought up by his uncle. So he got up, he said, hey, I never knew my parents because they left me with you. Tell me about my father. He said, oh, your father was a great priest. He had a great following. He said, tell me more. He said, what I remember about him, he was often talking of the other world. He wasn't too interested in this. And that is such a common theme on the spiritual path. But again, Swamiji was not like that. You think of that, the way Master told him. Now, he had that tendency. And Master told him, that's because you've had that in the past. And he said, you better learn to take the teachings out. Do what I'm asking you to do this time if you want the scales to be balanced. And that's very important because it is a sign of maturity. I want to read these lines from today, Swami's book, Living Wisely, Living Well. And I'm sure he remembered very, very nicely that today is his day of discipleship. He writes, make a special effort today to break out of some self-enclosure, whether of selfishness or timidity or personal preoccupation. The growth toward maturity is a matter of escaping from one's ego prison. Expand your awareness to include the need of others. Think of that story, I'm pausing for a moment, where Swami was with double pneumonia, almost he said in delirium. He saw the doctor come in, and before he could ask the doctor what his reports were, the doctor said, sir, can you help me? And Swami said, what is it? Look at the willingness. And then he said, well, my son is going abroad. I have a lot of expenses. I am a doctor. I want to be dharmic. I've been brought up with the religious teachings, but I don't know if I can be successful without cutting corners. That simple request, Swami launched on 1.5 years of writing of those 26 lessons, material success through yoga principles. And he said after that doctor left, he just couldn't go back to himself. He couldn't get preoccupied, which he had good right to. Double pneumonia is quite a situation to have. But Swami said, I kept thinking, what can I do for him? And then he would say, what can Master do through me? And as we know the story, he invited Keshava, write this, let's do that. I think I have the answers. And the moment he would put his will, he said, I felt all these things come to me. And that's the end of this reading. You'll see how that works. Master used to say that too. Master told Swamiji that many things that Divine Mother asked him to do, he said, I didn't know how to do it. So he told Divine Mother, I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing. And he said that sets into process, something which slowly, he said that when it works out, you look back and you say, I didn't do it. I just expressed willingness. I just became a channel. I was an instrument, like Arjuna said. But something higher was flowing. And that is discipleship. It's not easy. Because so far, till we come to the Guru, we've lived our way. We didn't know any better. So it is even totally understandable. God wants to help us. But the trouble is, once we come also, We would much rather have him change according to our whims and fancies. And that's why our gurus were wise. All of them asked their disciples at initiation, do you give me your unconditional obedience and love? Love because their treatment perhaps seems like painful. It's like, that's not love. I thought you will bless me. I asked for blessings. What's going on? Like one of our satsangs in the village last week, I was watching that video. You ask for blessings and God says to his assistant, where's my hammer and chisel, please? This rock has asked finally to be chiseled. I want to make a beautiful statue. I have a very nice image like parents have. I want my child to be like this. And why not? If you're a wise parent, you will try everything, and you should. And God is the wisest parent. But then we say, oh no, I want to keep this. I want to keep that rough edge. I don't like it when your chisel hits me over here. So the same thing goes with the guru. And Swami writes, continuing the reading over here, he says, expand your awareness to include the needs of others, then expand your feelings by sympathizing with those needs. Next, expand your self-identity by helping people to fulfill their needs. Finally, release yourself from self-identity altogether by telling yourself, it is not I who help anyone. I am only a channel of God's grace. The feeling will come to you at last. He alone is acting through me. He alone is the doer. Now that last line is very important because, as St. Augustine said, Lord, thou hast made us in thy image, and our hearts are restless unless we merge in thee. That we are like a patient who wants to be pain-free, but we don't want the surgery. We want the airplane route. We want things to work out fast. And the process can be very quick. But we often do not cooperate with that. And Swami is over here saying that try to break out of that shell. How long can it continue? Swami said once a monk had a dream. He was with Master in Lemuria. And he shared it to Swamiji. And Swami said, really? I thought that was mythological or long back in history. But the good thing is Master was alive, so they both went to him. Swami went, I think. And he said, sir, he had a dream. He was with you in Lemuria. Master said, oh, that's true. We were together. That was 80,000 years ago. He was my disciple. Swami said, 80,000 years ago, you were the guru. He was the disciple. I don't think the guru was lacking any power at that time either. Like this morning, I was having a chat with a young resident doctor, and he was saying, oh, it's so hard, and this medical practice, and I sometimes feel, what's going on. I said, and he says, pray for me. I said, prayers are ongoing. Like Master said, God is there. But you are having moods, you're having an attitude problem, you're having a like or dislike. And we can see that, but it is sometimes so much to our liking, that ego, that the very thing which is stifling us, we try to protect it from the one person who can save us. Swami used to say, Master would openly declare, I know all your thoughts. And naturally, most people fled the scene. And Swami said, but he said, I was so grateful. He would finally go to Master and he would say, sir, please change me, correct me. He said, because inwardly, he said, I had never met anybody who could finally have such a deep insight into me that he could bring it out, he could polish it, sandpaper it, cleanse him and free him over there. Now, discipleship has a lot of happy blessings also. We get good experiences, miracles happen, God saves us, protects us. Anand Mohima had a disciple, she was staying for many years. And Swami says in the beginning, God is very kind. He gives you some extra experiences and then the real work begins. So the work began for this devotee, and day after day Anand Mohima was trying to test her and more and more. Finally it came to the point, this devotee said openly, she said, now I will run away from this ashram. And Ma smiled and she said, and where will you run? That again, that human tendency that I will get away from this situation, I will avoid you, I will avoid that. But you see, the trouble is, again, within us. Like one of Swami's songs says, how oft like sheep we've strayed apart, now guided by thy ray. And Swami said he had finally come to that point when he met Master on this beautiful day. As he said he had not planned it, of course. He didn't even know the way it was going. It seemed like he won't see Master for many months. But when he said, I finally saw him, he said, the first words I said to him were, I want to be your disciple. And Swami says that was because, he said, I had reached the point in my life where I realized, as much as he was very skilled, and he said none of those things mattered. If anything, they were a burden. And he said, I wanted to transfer it. Or you might say, and later what he did, at that moment he thought he'll become a hermit. But Master, what did Master do? Master didn't let any of his skills go, actually. He kept him in the monastery, but one by one. And yes, they spent only 3.5 years physically in proximity, but over the decades, Master made sure every aspect of Kriyananda was used in a very higher way. Like we were saying, he didn't ignore his personality, nor his intelligence, nor his devotion. Actually, the Guru kept adding, kept bringing out of his disciple wonderful things. And Swami would say it was not easy. He said the traditional path of renunciation, which the world was coming out, still is coming out, of Kali Yuga tendencies, is so different. Somebody asked him towards the end of his life, can you define your discipleship? He said, yes. It has been diametrically opposite to that of a traditional seeker. And if it was diametrically for him, is ours going to be diametrically opposite to his? He had some doubts. See, because again, discipleship is truly unique. Each disciple has to feel, and because it is a lifelong exercise, actually lifetimes of exercise, as we know, we have to initiate and not just say, keep praying for me, tell them to pray for me, I'm putting a prayer request now. The Guru is there. That's the blessing. Where do you find somebody who's a Guru, who can see you through life and death? Imagine, Swami used to later marvel. He said, I was born in Romania to American parents. I found a Guru from India. Think of Babaji and Lahiri Mahashaya. Lahiri Mahashaya said, where have I heard of such love? So on one level, we do get, as Shankaracharya said, the greatest blessing in all the three worlds is to get a Guru. But once we get that, like Swami said, it's a responsibility also. We have to do, like Christ said, he would tell disciples, now go out and sin no more. And I'm sharing a healing principle here. He would say, I have intervened, I'm doing my part. You have to do your part also. And it's not hard. It's just sometimes if we get our emotions out of the way, if we get our ego out of the way, if we do, Sri Yukteswarji says, some minimal introspection. How far has the ego led me? How we are depending on people so many times. I one time came to this conclusion, somebody was not listening to me. And I said, my goodness, it's not their fault at all. I wouldn't listen to another person if I was in that situation, because where we are finally making our decisions from is the ego. And the ego is limited by its very nature to obey, to follow, to open up. And that's why they say man is one's own greatest enemy. That's why, perhaps, I'm not judging anybody, it took him 80,000 years, that disciple, 80,000 years. And Swami asked Master, how long does it take? And Master said, a long time. And then, of course, he said, how long have I been your disciple, sir? And Swami said, Master said, it's been a long time, Walter. That's all I'll say. Good answer. But Swami used to say the spiritual path again. We say God has reincarnated me. We are causing it. We don't like it, but if we are not choosing it, we are creating time. As God's children, perhaps we have that ability. So I think on this day, if we want to honor Swamiji, now many of you didn't meet Swamiji, so don't think that there's a loss over there. Let me tell you a dream, actually. I'll close with this. This was told to me in the days of Swami's passing in 2013 by a founding member of Italy. And her name at that time, earlier, was Graziella, beautiful soul. She used to cook for Swamiji before Leela became Swami's cook and such. And Swami, she said that she was going through a difficult time after decades on the path. So they sought Swami's time and appointment, and they had a time. And she said that it was very interesting. Swami invited many others, and they had a good time. And Swami started telling, oh wow, how nice it was when we spent time. They came, then their children came. We started the school because of them. Bhima used to do the businesses. Oh, thank you so much, and let's have tea and this and that. And the meeting ended, and they left. As she was putting on her shoes outside the house, she looked at her husband and she said, oh, I wanted a spiritual name today. And I forgot to ask Swamiji that. And they said, oh, but it's been so late. Maybe you can write him a mail or meet him. He's here after all. The challenge was Swami left his body 5 days later. And of course, the whole thing changed. And she said she was meditating on the second night next to his body in the coffin. And she said just suddenly at midnight, she felt this big tunnel of blue light come from the coffin into her heart and spiritual brain. And she said, I saw Swamiji beautifully smiling on the other side of the tunnel. And he's smiling. He says, Shanti Ma. Now later she would say she was looking for peace. So look at the exactness of the gift. Swami says, Shanti Ma. And she says, sir, are you talking to me? He said, I don't see anybody around over here. And she said it was true. There was nobody in the temple at that late hour. So he said, you didn't guess this would happen, did you? And he laughed. And she said the vision ended and the light and his face went back. Now, next morning, she was scheduled to do seva in the kitchen, which she was doing till somebody asked her, Graziella, can you give me that pan? And she said, here it is, but my name now is Shanti Ma. And the person said, that's wonderful. Who gave you the name? She said, Swamiji. And the person's eyes became so big. And she thought for a moment that actually this was a very personal experience and she should not have shared it. So she excused herself from the kitchen and went to meditate. She said, Swami immediately came back in the vision again. And she said, I'm sorry I shared this personal experience with my friend. And he said, oh no, that's your spiritual name so that people can call you by that name. By all means, share this story. He said, I want you to share another thing with everyone. And this was the important point. He said, please let people know that just as I have come to you, I can come to each one of them. But they have to call out to me. Otherwise, I cannot come. Such, he said, is the divine law. How much more can a guru, a teacher, a guide reveal that call out to me and I will come? Otherwise, I cannot. It's like Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita saying, oh Arjuna, as long as you think that you can run your life, I will observe. But the day you invite me, I will come in and take complete charge of it. When I read that line, I remember I said, now, nothing is in charge of me. Please come and take charge. And beautiful things do start happening. All we have to do is remind ourselves through daily meditation, through prayer, looking into the eyes of the Master, reflecting, as Sri Yukteswarji said. He said, do you want to learn? People say, I want to learn from my own experience. Okay, for 80,000 years. He says, that's not actually a wise approach. It's much better to learn from others' experience also. That's why we share stories. Then Sri Yukteswar said, that's not the wisest approach either. He says, introspection, reflection can take you there in a moment. What are we really here for? Are we hindering our process? How, as Swami towards the end of his life, he used to repeat this phrase in every talk. He said, cooperate with divine grace. That the divine grace is trying to help us. And we have to cooperate with that till we can start feeling more and more of that presence and that joy, that energy, as we can start thinking of others. Anytime you feel, I'll share this personal story. I used to stay in the monastery out in Vatunde. It must be very high grace because I remember any morning if I woke up and there was the slightest thought, a thought if crossed my mind that, what can I do today? What's there for breakfast today? What about me? I would simply send an SMS to the Sangha, hey, I'm going to the city. Does anyone need anything? And you know what happens when you tell that. You're far out in the country. Ritu has stayed there, so she's laughing. You get 30 requests, from a screwdriver to petrol to veggies to eggs, X, Y, Z. And I remember, friends, sometimes I would come to Pune twice, just so my energy level would not, if I thought of myself, it's like they say, somebody said, if this is heaven, the medulla is hell. You think of yourself, it's so limiting. It comes to that point, it is so crushing. Master said, the crushing weight of self-identity is pressing me. Oh, Mother, expand my awareness. Oh, Mother, expand my awareness. You can see in the caste system, he was way up there, that it is a painful thought. It's a limiting thought to think of oneself. And that is when so much energy comes that you say, my goodness, how can somebody go to the Mumbai airport twice in a day from Pune? It's because God is flowing through, Divine Mother is flowing through, Guru. Swami used to say, I can't do this. But then he would say, but my Guru can do anything through me. And so he would express that willingness, and suddenly his Guru would like, yeah, thank you, Walters, here I come. Except that the communication is very subtle. It's not so obvious. Again, the human ears want to make it obvious. It doesn't work like that on the spiritual realm. It is subtle, it is refined, if it is of a very high nature. And Swami showed us that. How can we bring it? And if he was here today, I think he would tell us, you all can accomplish what I have done. Every morning, somebody asked him, we like to know the secrets of great people. So somebody asked him, so how do you pray? What's your favorite prayer? Do you want to know that? Then you'll have to apply it also. He said, every morning when I get up, I pray to God through the form of my Guru. I say, what is your will? May thy will be done, not mine. Because remember, Swami used to say the ego is, somebody asked him, sir, how does the ego work? And he said, it stays with you till the very end. He said, it's like, it's right there behind you. Be watchful of it. Anytime you say, I want to do it my way and not my Guru's way. Now, don't do it others' way. Do it my way. But remember that my has to be very sattvic, has to be very expansive. It has to be effortless. It has to be the way Swami would say, he trained himself. What would Yogananda do? What a high exercise, but what else would you do if you want to become like him? If you want his blessings, what you're saying is, I want his consciousness. And Swami said it was not enough to just do what he did. Then he started praying, help me think as you think. He said that was not enough either. And see, again, I think common religion, and this was a trouble from Jesus' times, priests and religion, they try to bring religion down to the point where it's easy. Oh, you have a guru, you're lucky. Well, having a guru is a good starting point, but that can take a long time. And then Swami said, I started praying to Master, help my every feeling reflect your feeling. And again, you see the secret. He was not a special man, except that to that degree he had removed himself from the way. And as Swami Shankarananda, who was visiting Ananda village, he said, he was shaking his head. How could Kriyananda do this? How could he do this? And then he said, I know now how he could do this. He didn't do it. He allowed his guru to do it through him. And it is so easy. Like Krishna said, invite me and I will take complete charge of your life. Because yes, one or two things will go here and there. But those are our attachments. They anyways are not bringing us happiness. We are going in circles around them. Like Jayaji recently shared, he said, is that really a sacrifice? Exchange that. And he says, see what God has in mind, because truly he is our father, our mother, and has taken a very, very deep interest. For those of you especially who've taken discipleship, never tell yourself, I don't have good karma, like that monk was moving in that direction. Master immediately stopped him. He said, never say that. He said, God has taken a very keen interest in you. Just keep moving a little bit more in that direction. Joy to you. Okay, so now we will do the discipleship. So please stand up. And this vow of discipleship was written by Swamiji. Sorry. You can keep it on if some people are online. They can also repeat this. And if you have not taken discipleship, maybe you just want to hear it inwardly because, it's not that once you say it, it's binding, but these are wonderful lines. So if you want to repeat it, feel free to. The first half I will just say, and please listen to it. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramhans Yogananda, I bow to you all. Divine Mother, I come before thee today, having long sought thy eternal light, long pondered the eternal truths, long followed the winding path that leads to thee. I have walked with my own strength, all too seldom with thine. I have walked with the thought, I want this from life, these answers, that guidance, this pathway or that. But I have seen that as often as I made claims on life, it eluded me. As often as I presumed on thy will, it turned away from me. Ah, too long, Mother, have I sought thee for myself, not for thy love. I know now that without thy strength added to mine, infusing it, I shall never find thee. Thine is the power, the grace, the infinite glory. With loving faith now I seek thee, through the ray of thy light that thou hast offered me. I will ascend to thee not by my power alone, but by the power of thy infinite love. I am thine mother, be thou eternally mine. Now please repeat after me. I offer myself in service and devotion to your cause and to the ray of the divine light as it is represented by your channels. Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and Paramhans Yogananda. Accept me into this family of self-realization and make me also, through them, an instrument of thy blessings. Thus as I receive, may others be blessed also to receive. I will join my energies to those of my Guru Bhais, my spiritual family on earth. I will cooperate with them, and especially with the living representatives and guides of my divine line of Gurus. Discipline me, guide me, purify me. Teach me to attune myself to thy ray, until at last, through daily meditation, service and devotion, I unite my soul with thy infinite spirit. Om.